Hello, everyone. If you missed our Monday discussion on the Feminist Lens, or if you need a review, then this is the video for you. In 2.2, we talked about using a Marxist critical literacy lens, looking through a work specifically through the lens of social class and social power, who has it, who wants it, and how that can change our view of the story. Well, we are going to be looking at another critical literacy lens in today's lesson for 2.3. So, just as a reminder, a literary lens is like a pair of glasses, a pair of lenses that you can use to view the text you're reading. It helps you focus in on one particular element rather than everything that's going on. It doesn't add anything that's not there to begin with, but it's one way to focus your analysis. A great way to think about a literary lens is like 3D glasses at a 3D movie. If you try to watch a 3D movie without wearing those glasses, it's going to look like that picture. Red, green, yellow, just all these wild colors going on. But if you put on those glasses, suddenly it comes into focus, and in this case, there's a lion jumping out of your screen. When you put on a literary lens, you are approaching everything that's going on in the book and choosing one color to really focus on, just bringing it into clarity. So for this week, we are looking at a feminist lens. The feminist lens grows out of the women's rights movement, originally women fighting for the rights to vote, to have jobs, to have their own property. But it's expanded over the decades to really put a focus on gender equality as a whole. So, not just what it means for women, but for people of all genders to have freedom. So, there are a number of key ideas that we'll use as default when using a feminist lens. The first is that society is run and dominated by heterosexual men. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to this, but if you look at our own country, in 250 years of American history, we've never had a female president. We've never had a non male president. We just now have our first female vice president. So there are lots of examples of men typically being the ones in power, the ones making the rules. Because of that, women and people in the LGBTQIA community are often seen as others. Straight men are treated as the default, everyone else is seen as abnormal in some way. This results in those groups holding an inferior position in society. They have less power, less influence, less respect. If you're interested in a more detailed history on feminism, because it's changed a lot in the last decades, there's a link in this slideshow, which is posted on Schoology, that'll give you some of that background. When you're using a feminist lens, there are a number of central questions you can ask of a text. Firstly, how do the characters' gender and sexuality affect their power? Even more importantly, are there traditional gender roles? Do characters follow them? How are characters who do not follow them treated by others? You can think about Lenny from Of Mice and Men. He's this big, strong guy, but he's also very soft spoken and kind, and his favorite thing to do is just pet soft things. That's not exactly a traditionally manly pursuit, and some of the other characters look at him a bit strangely because of it. Moving on to C, what roles do women have in the text? Are they in minor or prominent roles? In A Raisin in the Sun, we had several women in very prominent roles. Mama, Ruth, and Benny are all really well fleshed out characters. But in Of Mice and Men, we only have one female character, and she doesn't even have a name. That maybe says something about whose perspective matters in this text. We can also ask, what influence does society and culture have on gender roles in the text? Gender roles are made up by different cultures and societies. The expectations for a woman in 2020s America are not the same as they were for a woman in 1920s America or for a woman in 2020s China. So we want to look at how culture influences these roles. Number E, or letter E, would an LGBTQIA character be accepted by the text? And this often connects back to those gender roles. How are characters treated who diverge from what is seen as the norm? Finally, are men, women, and people of other genders held to the same expectations as each other, or do there seem to be different sets of rules based on gender? Is it an even playing field, or are there two completely, three completely, many completely different fields? So, at the bottom of your notes in the packet, you're going to be turning our feminist lens on our own society because we don't just use these lenses to examine texts, we can use them to examine our community. If we examine our own society through a feminist lens, what are some examples of expectations or rules for men versus expectations or rules for women? One very simple example could be think about McDonald's Happy Meal toys. What do the toys for men usually look like, or the toys for boys? And what do the toys for girls usually look like? What does that say about what our culture thinks boys should be interested in and girls should be interested in? See what examples you can come up with. Secondly, do you think men, women, and people of other genders have the same amount of power in our society? Explain your opinion using some examples, either from your own life or things that you've heard or witnessed. As we read through chapter 3 of Mice and Men, we're really going to focus on bringing this feminist lens and analyzing how gender and sexuality might play a role in letting us learn something interesting, not just about the story, but about our own society. Catch you next time.